Good morning, everybody. Um, Appreciate you joining us for the water supply briefing for the state of Utah. I am Trevor. And I also wanted to uh, give a appreciation for the team who helped produce a lot of these forecasts throughout the state, some of who are on this call, Brenda, myself, Wolfgang, Nanette, and Cody. Hang on. Today we're going to talk a little bit about our model soil moisture conditions. Then we're going to move on to a precipitation and snow overview, and then we'll dive into our water supply forecasts and talk briefly about some of the errors associated with them. And then we'll wrap it up looking forward, and we'll take questions after that. And this webinar is being recorded, and the slides will also be made available on our website along with the recording. So if you want to refer to it later, you may be able to do so. Looking at our fall model soil moisture conditions, on the plot on the left, we have the soil moisture conditions heading into this winter season. And you can see lots of greens and blues, which indicates near to above normal soil moisture conditions. In the middle figure, we have soil moisture conditions from the previous year, so the fall of 2022. And this was coming off the heels of a pretty extended drought, and it's evident in the soil moisture conditions where you can see lots of oranges and reds, which would indicate below normal. And on the far right, you can see the change from this recent winter to the previous winter. Quite a bit of an improvement across the board for most areas. Soil moisture is important because it's an indicator of runoff efficiency. It's one of the ingredients that goes into that. So higher soil moisture would be an indicator for more efficient runoff as opposed to lower soil moisture. Moving to this past month for precipitation, it was very wet across the entire state for the most part. We had a number of pretty significant storms come through that affected the state of Utah, some of which we were dealing with some remnants of atmospheric river moisture. And that was evident in nearly all the watersheds having 140+% of average precipitation for the month of February. The Deschênes was the winner with 199% of average precipitation. Really a great month and a much needed month. Looking at this past month and through a historical lens, the figure on the left is a picture of all the snow-till sites and how this last February ranked historically. So where you see the numbers next to those dots, that would be how that month ranked historically. So a lot of the number ones would indicate that it was the wettest February on record. And we see a number of ones, particularly across the northern half of Utah, and many top 5 and top 10 wettest Februarys on record. We can see that evident on the snow-till plot on the right for the Deschênes watershed. It's 13 sites put together. You can see on February 1st, we're sitting at 7.1 inches, and then by March 1st, we were sitting at 13.6 inches. So overall, a fantastic month for accumulating snow, and lots of precipitation occurred. This benefited us also when looking at the water year precipitation to date. So since October through February, many of the watersheds across, especially the northern half of Utah, were right at average or slightly above average. And then as we go further south in the Sevier and Virgin, they're a little below average for water year precipitation to date. Looking at our snowpack conditions in our model, the figure on the left, we have in the shaded areas That's our model SWE. And then overlaid on top of that are the NRCS no-till sites, and they're color coded based according to the legend in the lower right there, based according to the percent median. Really, the take-home message here: everywhere improved since February 1st. Some had a bigger improvement than others, which by March 1st, many areas were sitting at or just above normal for SWE. The exception being the Virgin watershed. It's still a little below normal, but it also started way below normal in February 1st. So everywhere improved, and many areas are at or slightly above normal on SWE. So let's jump into our water supply forecast. On the image here on the left, this is a picture of all of our water supply points. They're color coded based on the forecast as a percent of average. The greens and blues indicate above average runoff forecast, and then oranges are below normal. And we can see kind of this general precipitation pattern evident here as well. The same pattern we saw in the precipitation, where really the northern half of the state is doing really well. Southern half is slightly below normal. On the table on the right are a few select locations and our forecast for runoff for the April through July period. Diving into individual watersheds, the next series of slides are all the similar format, so I'll explain this one, and then all the rest as we go through the various watersheds will be similar. In the photo here, we have shaded areas on the left. In the photo on the left, the shaded areas are the model SWE as a percent of normal, and then overlaid on top of that is our water supply forecast points, and they are color coded as a percent of average. We're going to look specifically at the Logan River site, and I might add, if you want to see the forecast for a specific site, you can go to our website and get all the details for each of these sites. But we'll look at the Logan in the upper right. As a reminder, we produce probabilistic forecasts ranging from the 90% chance exceedance, in this case would be 98,000 acre feet, to the 10% chance exceedance, which would be 153,000 acre feet. The pink bars are our official forecasts issued at the beginning of each month. And then the most probable scenario, which would be the 50% exceedance, would be 123,000 acre feet, or 116% of average for the Logan River. Nearby snow-till site to this water supply forecast point, which would be the Tony Grove Lake snow-till site. We can see the improvement since the start of the year. Really, we're sitting at about 92% of average on January 1st, and by March 1st, we are at 121% of average. And this is referencing the figure in the lower right. And I've also put the 2023 snow accumulation for that site as well for reference. Moving south to the Weber River Basin, our forecast range is anywhere from 100 to 122% of normal. In the upper right, looking at the Lost Creek water supply forecast point, we're expecting 113% of average. And on the lower right, we see a nearby snow-till site with pretty much the same message as before, a really productive January and February, helping us get to 109% of SWE at this no-till site. Moving to the Provo River Basin, our forecasts are ranging from 82% to 108% of normal. Looking at the Provo Woodland site, we're almost right at normal at 104%. And in the lower right at the Trial Lakes No-Till site, you can see at the middle of January, we were sitting at 66% of average on our snow, and now we're up to 122%. Moving to the Six Creeks Basin, our forecasts are ranging from 111% to 135% of normal. The Big Cottonwood Creek, we have at 112% of average for our forecast. And same message as before in the lower right, just a really productive January and February as far as snow. Moving east to the Duchesne, we're forecasting anywhere from 90% to 115% of average. Looking at the Lake Fork site in the upper right, we're sitting at a forecast of 94% of average for our April through July volumes. And this one, the improvement in the February moisture is pretty dramatic. Remember, the Duchesne averaged about a 200% of normal precipitation in February. You can see on February 1st, our water supply forecast was 63% of normal, and now it's jumped up to 94% of normal. And if you look at the Lake Fork Basin No-Till site, at the beginning of January, we were at the lowest on record for SWE at this particular snow-till site on January 8th. And you can see how we've made up a lot of ground over the last couple of months, as we're sitting at 110% of normal. Moving south to the Virgin and Sevier River basins. These areas are a little lower, ranging from 75 to 125% of normal. The Sevier River at Hatch in the upper right, we're looking at an 88% of average forecast, or 42,000 acre feet. But if we look at the snow-till, a group of snow-till sites across the Sevier River Basin, there's 5 snow-till sites in this represented in this plot in the lower right. January 1st, we were at 41% average SWE, and we've recovered to 106% by March 1st. A brief note on our errors associated with these forecasts. On the figure on the left, you can see the March forecast error. And then we've included a few specific sites in the table up on the upper right. One thing to know is our forecasts typically do better in headwaters, where we have a good handle on the diversions and demands with the watershed, and they do worse in lower elevations where early melt may play a factor, or watersheds where we don't know a whole lot about the diversions or demands. And as always, in the beginning part of the spring, the future weather is the primary source of our uncertainty at this point in the season. Looking forward over the next 7 days or so, we're continuing an unsettled weather pattern. There's going to be multiple chances for precipitation. On the far lower right box is the cumulative 7-day total, anywhere from a ½ inch to 1 inch, and perhaps even locally higher amounts expected over the next 7 days. Looking beyond that, in the toward the middle of March, we have slightly increased chances of below normal precipitation and above normal temperature. So something to keep an eye out for. So in summary, our soil moisture coming into this winter season, generally near to above normal for most of Utah, and we're better off than what we were a year ago. As far as the SWE, on March 1st, nearly everywhere had an improvement from February 1st, thanks to a very active storm pattern through February. Many areas are now normal to above normal on SWE. The exception to that would be the virgin watershed, which is still a little below normal, even though the virgin watershed also had a pretty big improvement in the amount of snow from February 1 to March 1. And as far as our water supply forecasts, most areas had an improvement from the February forecast to the March forecast, an increase in the volumes predicted. Many areas are now near normal to slightly above normal, and the exception being the further south in the virgin and severe watersheds, where some of those were expecting slightly below normal runoff volumes. We appreciate you joining us today. We invite you to join us next month, on April 5th. We do a webinar similar to this one for the Colorado River Basin. Be at 10 a.m. and then we'll do our Utah webinar at 11:30 a.m. Also wanted to point out we have a peak flow forecast webinar on March 20th. So I invite you all to register for that, and you can register on our webpage and get a link when you register. If you're interested in getting a hold of us, here is email addresses, which you could use to write to us. Or if you're not sure who to ask, you can always write our operations email, and that would get forwarded to the appropriate personnel. If you need to get a hold of us on the weekends or in off hours, that operations email is going to be the best way. Somebody on the staff will be in the office every day, and that will get to the right people. And so with that, that's all I have. Invite any questions if there are any. Okay. Well, I appreciate you all joining us today. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you very much.